I'm going to be using a few PowerPoint slides to try to give you clarity about the CAF and what you need to do over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to begin, and my intention is to end by 8:30, and that should allow plenty of opportunity to ask questions if you wish to, specific to the CAF. I'll begin with a disclaimer because, as you all know, I'm a teacher. I'm a tutor. I'm an 11 plus expert. I'm the course author. But what I am not is an expert in the CAF or school admissions or appeals. And I don't have any inside information, and I don't have a crystal ball that I can make predictions for you and give you certainty about things that we would all like certainty about, but can't have it. So I'm here in the capacity of a friend to share some basic information and to read admissions criteria and share a second opinion if you want. As I've said, I'm not an expert in the CAF, school admissions policies, or appeals. I am not privy to any inside information and will not be held liable if you rely on something I say and neglect to check it for yourself. You must thoroughly scrutinize the admissions policies of schools that you are interested in. That said, now here's the overview. I'm going to begin with what the CAF is and my aims today, that you have two choices. I'll just explain what those two choices are. A little ditty about choices and certainty. In regard to the CAF, what is it that schools do? And what is it that the local authorities do? And then a little guidance on categories of school to include in your CAF. And about a little mention of appeals, a summary, and then it's question and answer. So begin with what is the CAF. CAF is just the way everybody refers to the common application form. And it's the form you use to notify your local authority. So I live in Slough/Langley, so my local authority is Slough. And so I would submit, if I were in your shoes, the CAF to Slough Borough Council, Slough Local Authority. And I would notify my local authority which state schools I would like my child to be considered for when it comes to a place in year 7. And the schools can be anywhere in the country. They don't have to be only in Slough. They can be in any part of England. But they must be state schools, meaning that they're not fee-paying schools. Those would be private schools. So don't include private schools in your CAF. But you're telling your local authority, these are the schools I want my child to be considered for. The local authority, if you have included schools which are in other local authorities, will liaise with those other local authorities. And it will liaise directly with schools which are in its own local authority. So that's what the local authority will do according to the schools you've put on your CAF. And as I've mentioned already, private schools, i.e. fee-paying schools, should not be included in the CAF. So that's the CAF. It's all to do with your school choices or preferences. Now, my aims today are to explain what the two choices you have are in relation to the CAF. Although I'm not an expert on the details of the CAF or the mechanics of how the schools liaise and the locals, all that stuff is actually irrelevant to you, because I understand the process very well. And if you've reviewed any of the previous CAF briefings, I am going to reinforce all the same points to you. And it's very straightforward, but lots of people do get confused about it, and a lot of nonsense is talked about it. As you know, with most aspects of 11 plus, that's the case. There are two choices in front of you with regard to the CAF, and I'm going to try and give you clarity about those two choices. Choice number one is which schools to list on your CAF. This is the trickier part of the two choices. And choice two is in what order to list those schools. Now, you would make the choices in that order. You would first shortlist the schools to include in your CAF, and then you decide which order to put those schools in. And as for how many schools, normally, that is in most local authorities, you have up to 6 schools that you can list. I know that Windsor and Maidenhead has fewer, it has 4. I don't know of any school that has more than 6, or rather any local authority that gives you more than 6 choices. But either way, it gives you a little bit of room to hedge your bets. And that second question is a very straightforward question, though people agonize over it and get it wrong. The guidance is very simple about the order in which to list the schools. You list your schools in your true order of preference. Lots of people think, no, there must be more to it than that. No, I want to play games. Don't play games. You will shoot yourself in the foot. You will shoot your child in the foot. Because if your child has finished their 11 plus exams, they've done what they can do. They've done their bit. A few children, a handful, are going to be sitting at stage 2 for Tiffin or St. Olave's, and some will be sitting for private schools. But all the other children, as towards 11 plus, their input is finished, but your input is not, because there's still room for you to get it wrong. So your child might have made their best efforts and, excelled at what they need to do, but you can still mess it up for them by getting your CAF wrong. So when it comes to the order, it's your true order of preference. And I'll mention that again in a bit, because lots of people just don't understand that it is that simple. Choices and certainty. As I mentioned, we all want certainty, but we can't have it. Not the kind that you're looking for. Certainty that your choices are reasonable, i.e. that you've gone about things in a good way. That you can have. And I'm trying to help you to get that kind of certainty. Certainty of the outcomes, i.e. what school your child's going to get. Will your child get into this school or not? That kind of certainty you can't have, because I don't have a crystal ball. And anybody who claims to know for sure, they are leading you on. You can only be sure that you're going about things in a good way, in the right way. It's another case of the growth versus the fixed mindset. The growth mindset is about the process, doing the right things in the right way at the right time, not the outcomes. It's the difference between what you can control versus what you cannot control. So let's talk a little about what schools do in relation to the CAF. Schools will be notified of everybody who has put their school on their common application form. So if you look at, and I will refer to grammar schools in Slough and Langley, the Slough Consortium, repeatedly, because it's where I live, it's where the majority of people who put their children on the course are interested in putting those schools on the CAF, and it's the ones I am most familiar with. So it's not to exclude everybody, but I'm speaking from familiarity. Langley Grammar School will have had probably a couple of thousand children who sat the exam there, and there'll probably be something like 1,000 people who will put Langley Grammar School on their common application form. Langley will be notified about every child who sat their exam and has put Langley on their common application form. And what Langley will do is they will use their published admissions criteria to rank the children. Who is getting their first place, who is second to get a place, who is third to get a place, all the way down. If they've had 1,000 applications, they will rank them from 1 to 1,000 in accordance with their published admissions criteria. And this is the process that all schools will follow. Some are simple, some simple admissions criteria, that is, like a couple of schools, they do it purely on score, purely on ranking. So their job is very easy. They'll just list the children in order of the scores that they achieved. But most admissions policies are a bit more complicated than that. Some will include criteria such as distance from the school, or postcode sector, the scores in the test, musical ability, sporting aptitude, sibling, feeder schools, religion, and other criteria. So it's a complicated thing, but that's the job of the school. they have to apply their published admissions criteria or oversubscription criteria in order to rank everybody who has put them on a CAF. That's what the schools do. This is much misunderstood. So I'll repeat this, no doubt, in this webinar. Schools are by law not permitted to prioritize offers on the basis of where you put them on your CAF, i.e., did you put them first on your CAF? Did you put them second? Did you put them sixth? Schools will mislead you about that, some deliberately and some unwittingly. And they will imply that, oh, if you don't put us at the top of your CAF, you've got no chance of getting in. And that's actually not true. They don't even know where you put them on your CAF. And even if they did know, they're not allowed to use that as a criterion to rank your child, i.e. to decide what position they are in the prioritized list. Now, I put willing in brackets, you can probably see at the end of that, because there is a school which in its admissions policy says that they will give priority to children who have put willing school as the first preference on their CAF. But I'm telling you that that is illegal. They are not allowed to do that. So ignore that. Schools are not allowed to use position CAF, and even if they had that information, which I don't believe they do, they can't use it to decide. It doesn't make any difference. You go and read their admissions policies, go to any grammar school's admissions policy, and they will, none of them will say that where you put us on your common application form is part of the selection criteria. So that's what the schools do. They will order all the children who appear, who have put that school on the CAF. And they are legally bound to adhere to their published admissions criteria. So there we are. All applicants are ranked in accordance with the published oversubscription criteria, and the school works down the list until it meets its PAN, P-A-N, published admissions number or planned admissions number, meaning how many children are they planning to take into year 7. So in the case of Langley Grammar School, I believe it's 180, which would be 6 groups of 30. And I'll just briefly explain what oversubscription and oversubscription criteria means. I expect you're familiar because you've probably read quite a few of them. Most grammar schools are oversubscribed. So again, back to Langley Grammar School, they have 180 places. They are likely to get 1,000 people wanting to go there, roughly. They can't offer places to all 1,000 children. So they are oversubscribed. There are more people wanting to go there than they have places for. That is what it means if they are oversubscribed. And the oversubscription criteria are the criteria they use to decide which 180 children will get those 180 places. So that's what the schools do. They just rank the children. And they provide information to the local authorities about who they're going to offer the places to. CAF. What do the local authorities, LAs, do? Well, they're the center of this. They coordinate the whole thing. They coordinate with other local authorities and they coordinate with all the schools. And they use the information you provide in your common application form in order to send and exchange information with other local authorities and with the schools. But it's really, really important that you don't submit late. The deadline is midnight at the end of this month, midnight on the 31st of October. The CAF is completed online. Don't rush to get it in before that. There's no advantage in submitting the CAF early, but there are great disadvantages to submitting the CAF late. The CAF is submitted online, and even if you have already submitted it, or you submit it in the next week, and then you have a rethink and you think, oh, well, I wish I hadn't done that. It's okay because you can log in and edit it. So you can edit it right up until the deadline, or 23:59 on the 31st of October. So that's very important because your local authority will take whatever you've submitted by that deadline, and they will use that in order to process your choices. But if you don't submit it by that date, your local authority will ignore your choices for round one. And they will just offer you any school that has a place after everybody else has been offered a place. And then they will use your choices for round two. But round one is the most important round because that is when the majority of places are accepted. So don't miss that deadline. So the local authority, whichever schools you've listed, will let all the schools on your common application form know that this child, name such, lives at such, they'll send all the information they have about your child, which you supplied in your common application form. And the school is essentially, your local authority is asking the school, are you prepared to offer a place to this child or not? Okay, so every school that you have put on your CAF, your local authority will ask that school either directly or via another local authority, are you prepared to offer this child a place? And the schools, of course, will go down their list and say yes or no, according to where this child is on their prioritized ranked list. I'll repeat this. I've said it already at least once. Note that the position in which a school appears on your CAF makes no difference to whether the school says yes or no. So, for example, again, Langley Grammar School, if your child lives on the doorstep of Langley Grammar School and has scored sky high, like let's say 130 or something, you won't know that yet. I think the results come out on Monday. But supposing you live on the doorstep of Langley Grammar School, your child has scored sky high, 130, let's say. That's as certain as you can be of getting a place there. Now, whether you put Langley as your first choice or you put Langley as your sixth choice, Langley is going to say yes. They don't care what position you put them. Only did you meet their criteria. And that is true for every school. All the grammar schools. They don't care where you put them on your CAF. They probably don't even get that information. And even if they got that information, they can't use it to decide whether to offer a place or not. So it's only whether you met or whether your child met their criteria or not. And then what happens on the 1st of March, which is known as National Offers Day, you receive an offer at the highest school, that is the highest on your CAF, that said yes. And then you would accept whatever place is offered at that time. So picture it like this, your local authority, supposing your CAF had 6 schools, and your local authority will have gathered information from all these schools, whether they are prepared to offer a place in round 1 or not. And then I picture it like they'll put a tick if the authority said, or if the school said yes, or a cross if that school came back with no. And then what they'll do is they'll go down your list, and the highest school that said yes, that's the one they will offer you. Now, there's more than one round of offers. The first round is on the 1st of March, but then you have a short time, a few days to accept that place, which you do, no matter what school you get. It's unlikely you'd get your first choice school. You might get your second, third, fourth, fifth, or even sixth choice of school. Doesn't make any difference. You accept whatever is offered. And you keep your fingers crossed that in the second round, you'll get an offer at a higher placed school on your CAF. And the second round is normally something like 4 weeks or a month after the first round. And then there may be another round again about 4 weeks or a month later, and possibly another round. So there are several rounds, essentially until the schools have finished making offers. So importantly, you accept the place you get. Now imagine that the place that you were offered in round one was, let's say, the 4th place school on your CAF. So you didn't get a yes from first, second, or third, but you got a yes from the 4th. So you get offered a place at school number 4 on your common application form. Now, in a subsequent round, it's quite possible that you'll get an offer from a school which is higher on your CAF, i.e. in position 3, 2, or 1, because you said you prefer it and the opportunity has now arisen. What you will not get in a subsequent round is an offer at a lower placed school. So if you've got school number 4, you will not get an offer from school number 5 or school number 6 for obvious reasons. You preferred number 4 to number 5 or 6, and you preferred 1, 2, and 3 to position 4. So if an opportunity arises at schools 1, 2, or 3 on your CAF, you obviously are interested. Now, this is the slightly trickier thing, which requires kind of a lot of thought and some research, which schools to include on your common application form. And I've categorized them into different types that you should include or consider include. Include the following schools in the CAF. Category 1, grammar schools that your child might be offered a place at, i.e. they've passed. And you're in the catchment. So the one I mentioned about, you live on the doorstep of Langley Grammar School and you've passed with flying colors, you might get a place there. Now you're very likely, in fact, but if you have passed and just passed, like scraped through with 111 and you live on the doorstep, you might not get a place at Langley. You might or you might not. There's no certainty about it. So that's why I say that if your child has passed and you're in the catchment, that is not a certainty that you will be offered a place. There's a good likelihood, but that's not certainty. So that's why I say your child might be offered a place. And there is some historical data which we might get to look at during the question and answer, but that's the first category of school. So for example, if you live in Buckinghamshire and your child has passed the Buckinghamshire test, they only have to pass, they don't have to get a high score, then there's a very good chance that your child will be offered a place in a Buckinghamshire grammar school. So you would include a Buckinghamshire grammar school. So that's category 1. Your child's passed, and as far as you know, you are going to fulfill the criteria, their admissions criteria. Remember, you don't have certainty. Then you need to include category 2 schools, grammar schools that your child probably won't be offered a place at, but you might appeal for if they're not offered a place. So as an illustration, Buckinghamshire results are out. I've received a handful of results. And Buckinghamshire results are out. Some children who live in Slough, they have passed the Buckinghamshire exam. Some who live in Hounslow, all over actually, have done well in the Buckinghamshire exam. But Buckinghamshire applies a catchment. And you may not be in the catchment. That means you're not going to get an offer. So that comes under category 2. You've passed for Buckinghamshire, and you probably won't be offered a place because you're not in catchment. You don't fulfill their admissions criteria. But if you're not offered a place, you might appeal for a place. If you don't get any other grammar school either, you might want to appeal for a place. So it's a very good idea to include within your CAF schools that you think probably won't offer a place, but that you want to leave open the option to appeal in case you don't get any other school. So I'm not suggesting that appeal, and in fact, an appeal is not something that should be taken lightly. I'll speak a little bit more about appeals just now. I'm just saying that right now, you might be really confident that your child's going to get into a grammar school and you're not thinking about appealing. But you'd think very differently when you got all the results and your child doesn't get any of the schools that you were really interested in, or it looks very unlikely. And then when the offers come, they're not offered one of the schools that you had in mind. Then suddenly an appeal looks very appealing. So I'm saying to you, think about that now. You can't predict what the outcomes are going to be. Not only the outcomes of the 11 plus tests, but the outcome of the CAF. You can't predict it. So what you're trying to do is to complete it in the best possible way. So yes, schools that your child might qualify for, schools that your child probably won't qualify for, but which you want to leave open the option to appeal. You can only appeal to a school that has rejected your application. So if you never made an application to the school, you can't actually appeal to it. You need a rejection, and then you're appealing the decision. And then category 3, very importantly, remember, there's no certainty. Even if your child passed, like I say, you live in Slough and your child passed, that's not certainty that they're going to get into Upton Court or Herschel or Langley or St. Bernard's. That's not certainty. So what you do is include at least one school that will almost definitely say yes, i.e. your catchment non-selective school, non-selective. Okay, so that means that you don't have to pass any kind of test in order to qualify. It's your catchment non-selective school. Now, that's a very important thing, and I'm going to stop sharing just for a second to explain the importance of putting a category 3 school, at least one of those. A school that is non-selective, the reason why I say include that, and normally, of course, you'd put it at the bottom of your CAF because you'd prefer the other choices. If your child, some people have done this, by the way, in the past, they've just put all grammar schools on their CAF and kept their fingers crossed that they'll get one of them. And then this is what happens when your child doesn't get any of the grammar schools, and that's all you put on your CAF, then what will happen is, since your child did not qualify for any of the schools on your CAF, they will wait until everybody's preferences, everybody's been offered their round 1 places, and any school which still has places at the end of that, they will offer you that. In other words, if you don't put a non-grammar school, non-selective school at the bottom of your CAF because you are just so sure that your child will get one of the grammar school, and then your child doesn't get, the entire allocation process will be completed. And then your child will be offered a place at a school with places remaining. And you can be pretty sure that the schools that have places remaining at the end will be the least popular schools. So what will happen in all likelihood is that your child will be offered a place at an unpopular school. And it might not even be the unpopular school at the end of your road. It might be an unpopular school that's several miles away. So don't be too sure that your child will get into one of the grammar schools. Include this category 3. It's like a fallback. So these are the 3 categories. I'll sum them up briefly. Grammar schools that your child might be offered a place at because they passed and you're in their catchment or you fulfill their criteria, you think. Category 2, that is schools that your child will not fulfill the criteria for either because they didn't pass or because they passed, but you're not in catchment. So you don't fulfill the criteria, but you might appeal to them. You want to leave open that option. And category 3, a school that your child will almost definitely get into because it's your catchment school. I always say almost because there is no definitely. There is no 100%. Now, appealing. If you do want to appeal to a school, put it on your CAF. As I just mentioned a few minutes ago, you can only appeal to a school that has rejected your application. If you'd never included it on your CAF, they can't reject your application. So include it on your CAF if you think you might, if you want to leave open the option to appeal. There's a question in the chat. I think I'll address it because it's relevant to what we're talking about right now. It says, if we hear from choice 2 school in round 1, what option do we have? If we wait to hear from option 1 in the second round offers, can we go back to choice 2 school? Right. If you've been offered a place at your second choice school in the first round of offers, you will accept it. So that place is secure. And in the meantime, because school 1 has rejected your application, you can begin an appeal to school number 1. When you make an appeal to the first school, you are not relinquishing your place at school number 2. You are not risking it. So that is secure. If you've accepted it, you've got school number 2. And then, so in a sense, an appeal would be, I use the phrase, a shot to nothing, meaning that you are not risking your second choice in appealing for your first choice. Okay, and there's another question here. What do I mean by an unpopular school? All right, an unpopular school, these are important questions, and thank you very much for asking them. I mentioned that most grammar schools are oversubscribed. In other words, more people are putting that school on the CAF than the school actually has places for. This is the case with most grammar schools, though not quite all, that they will get more people applying for places there than they actually have places to offer. So we call those are popular schools. And the more oversubscribed they are, the more popular we say they are. So an unpopular school is a school that is undersubscribed. So for example, a school may have 150 places, but only 130 people applied to go to that school. So that is an unpopular school. So it's not a comment about the quality of the teaching or the quality of the facilities. It's a comment about how popular they are with parents. So literally, unpopular means that not enough people want to send their children to the school. Normally, of course, there are underlying reasons for it. Sometimes it's the reputation of the school. Sometimes it is the condition of the school, and so on. But you can't really make a judgment about a school from its popularity. I've seen this many times over the years. So many schools are overrated and others are underrated. So popularity literally just means that lots of people want to send their kids there or not, and then they're unpopular. Thank you for those questions. There's questions about popularity. I wouldn't use popularity as a criterion for choosing a school, because in a sense, what you're doing is you're following the crowd, and that is hardly ever a good idea when you're making decisions for your child or life for that matter. So if you wish to leave open the option to appeal to a school, list it in your CAF. By the way, whilst I'm talking about leaving open the option to appeal, I want to mention that within Slough, the school which has the lowest cutoff score is St. Bernard's Catholic Grammar School. Generally speaking, people who are either non-Catholic or non-Christian tend not to consider St. Bernard's Catholic Grammar School when they're completing their CAF choices. But they then regret that later if their child isn't or doesn't qualify for Upton Court or Langley. If they pass, they probably would qualify for Herschel if you're within a 4-mile radius. So I would seriously consider that if you live in Slough, regardless of religion, consider putting St. Bernard's Catholic Grammar School on your CAF with a view as a kind of a fallback and with a view to appealing should it come to that. There's a question that's come up in the chat. I just want to try and understand it. Yes, the question is, would it be possible that your local authority has offered you your second choice or your third choice of school in round one, and then later on, they offer you your first choice? That is absolutely possible. Thank you for asking that question, because it gives me the opportunity to give clarity on. That is exactly why you must list the schools in your true order of preference. Because if they have offered you, let's say, school number 3 in round one, you accept that, that's secure. And then in a second round or third round or fourth round, you might get an offer from a school which was higher. So if you've been offered school number 3, you will not be offered school number 4, 5, or 6 later. It will be nonsense because you've already got school 3, which you prefer to schools 4, 5, and 6. But you might get an offer at school number 2 or school number 1 in a subsequent round. You don't have to accept a higher offer if you don't want to, but it's possible that that could happen. The time to appeal is the moment you've been rejected. So, for example, in round 1, instead of getting your first choice of school, you got your second choice of school or your 6th choice of school. You then begin an appeal to your whichever school you want to appeal to. So as soon as you've got a rejection from a school, you can appeal against that decision. Okay, so the appeal, you can start it as soon as you've had the rejection. You don't wait until all the rounds are finished, as soon as you've had a rejection. There's a question about, is there any point in putting a Buckinghamshire school on the CAF if your child has passed but you live far away? The answer is an unequivocal yes. Please do put Buckinghamshire if your child has passed, but you don't happen to live in Buckinghamshire, because you're leaving yourself the option to appeal open. Okay, so that's, I think, quite a straightforward. And yes, you can appeal to as many schools as you want, but there will all be separate appeals. So you'd appeal separately against each rejection. So the answer is yes, you can appeal to more than one school. You can appeal to as many as you like, as long as you've had the rejection first. And yes, you would always accept the offer that you've been given, whatever the offer is, because you're not jeopardizing that offer. If you accept an offer and you're appealing, you've still got that offer in your hand. So you're not risking the school that you've got when you appeal. Now, I'm not going to talk about the details of appealing because I'm not a specialist in appealing, but yesterday I sent an email where I was requesting results and all that. And in the attachment to that was some general guidance about appeals. So if you are planning to appeal, get help from a professional. This is what they do. I'm a teacher. But I'll just, in a broader sense, what does an appeal consist of? In an appeal, you want to prove that your child is highly academic and would really benefit from a grammar school education, proof of which must come from the primary school. And you must have some evidence of some unfortunate circumstances beyond anybody's control that caused your child to perform below their true capability on the day. Okay, so this is the essence of an appeal. Yes, doesn't matter where you live. If your child has passed for bucks, I would recommend you put bucks on your common application form because you're leaving open the option to appeal. You won't get an offer, but if you appeal, you might succeed. Yes, an appeal, it doesn't matter where you live. You can live anywhere in the country and make an appeal. So you don't have to be in catchment in order to appeal. You can live anywhere. And yes, you can appeal to any school that you have been rejected by. That is any state school. State school meaning that it's not a fee-paying school. The school is free. So that is what I mean by a state school. And yes, you can appeal to any state school which did decline your application. And yes, if your child didn't pass the 11 plus, yes, you can appeal. But then you have to prove again that your child truly is, suited to grammar school education and they underperformed on the day of the exam, whatever, and you need to provide evidence of that. So no, they don't have to have passed in order for you to appeal. You can appeal even if your child didn't pass, but you have to kind of justify and explain that they should have passed but didn't. I'm going to speak a little bit more now about choosing the schools. Okay, so I'll stop looking at comments in chat, though they were very, very interesting, and thank you, everybody. I'll come back to it in a bit, but I'll proceed with my quiz. So appeal or not. Yes, if you want to leave the option open, put the school on your CAF. If your child has passed for Buckinghamshire, but you don't live in Buckinghamshire, put the Buckinghamshire school on your CAF. In case they don't get any of the others, you can try an appeal. You could, at least you leave yourself the option open. And like all these schools on your CAF, you put the those schools that you only putting in for the to leave yourself the option of an appeal open. They go in true order of preference, just like all the other schools in your CAF. So, as I've mentioned, for further guidance about appeals, consult an appeals professional, which I am not. Now, appealing is not a trivial thing. It's onerous on you. You have to gather evidence, you have to make plans, you have to take out time out from work, and it's potentially stressful too. So it's onerous on you. It can be stressful. And of course, it prolongs the uncertainty. So I would not appeal lightly. I would only appeal if, you feel like, yes, my child really ought to be in a grammar school because that would suit their academic needs and that they really would have excelled in the relevant exam, if not for unfortunate circumstances. So it needs to be a case which is a genuine case of some child missing out through unfortunate circumstances. So summary, which schools to list in your CAF? Schools that might offer a place, grammar schools, that is, that might offer your child a place because you passed and you think you probably fulfill the other criteria. Schools that probably won't offer a place, like I've been mentioning, Buckinghamshire, your child passed, but you're not in catchment, so they won't offer a place, but you might appeal. So leave the option open. Don't shut down that option now. You don't know. You might be confident that your child's going to get into one of the other grammar schools, but they might not. Your CAF is a chance to hedge your bets. Like I said, your child's work may be done, but yours is not. You can get the CAF wrong and your child miss out on a grammar school place because of it. It's happened before. At least one definite yes, i.e. your catchment non-selective school. And that would normally be number 6 because you prefer any of the other options. And in which order to list those schools, I'm sure you all know, but I'm going to say it again. List them in your true order of preference. So making your short list of, in most cases, 6 schools. It's not 6 for all. As I mentioned earlier, I believe Windsor and Maidenhead only give you 4, but Slough gives you 6, Buckinghamshire gives you 6, and I believe most local authorities give you 6 schools or 6 choices of school that you can put. You don't have to use all your choices either. List them in your true order of preference. Okay. The second choice is easy. It really is. The first choice is which schools to include in your CAF. So, your short list of 6 schools out of maybe 20. That's more tricky, and I can try and help you with that. But I'm going to just briefly explain why that second choice about what's the order in which I should put the schools. I'm going to now explain why that is very simple, very straightforward. But this is what you do. You've got your short list of 6 schools, the schools that your child is likely to be offered a place at, the schools that you like, but your child is not likely to be offered a place at, but if they're not offered a place, you might want to appeal to. And at least one non-selective school, i.e. your catchment non-selective school. So you make your list of 6, supposing you've got your list of 6 schools that you want to include in your CAF. Now, what order should you put them? Here, you can get it terribly wrong. And if you've reviewed my CAF briefings from previous years, you will have heard this anecdote before, but I'm going to share it because I think it's useful to kind of just to help you put into perspective that it really does matter the order that you put the schools. Over 20 years ago, a boy who joined my course quite late, but he did work hard and he was academic. He almost missed out on a place at Langley Grammar School. They lived, I think, in Heston or Hounslow because he used to attend in Heston School. And I came to know after the CAF deadline that he'd been offered a place at their local non-grammar school. But I also knew that he'd scored high in the Slough Consortium exam. I think, if I remember right, it was actually 119. And I said to his parents, but 119 is high enough to get him into Langley, which is what they wanted. So I said, how come he's not going to Langley? And they said it was their fault because they put his local non-grammar school higher. And so, of course, he'd been offered that higher preference and Langley lower. And I asked, why did you do that? And they said, because that local non-grammar school is quite popular and they didn't want to miss out on a place there. And so they put it high up because they thought they got better chance of getting into that popular non-grammar school if they put it higher up. But he would have qualified for Langley, which they preferred. But Langley didn't even consider it because he got an offer at their highest preference. So they messed it up. They really messed it up. And I told them, look, he should have got into Langley. And then they approached their local authority and explained what had happened and how they had made a blunder because they didn't understand the system. And he was lucky, that boy, because he did then get into Langley. Now, there was some flexibility then, but you have to remember that was over 20 years ago, and things don't work quite like that now. So you need to get the common application form right. So this is what you do. You've got your short list of 6 schools. And you sit down with your child, you sit down with your family, everyone who's going to be affected by the school choices. And you say, okay, here are the 6 schools that we've shortlisted. Let us imagine every single one of these 6 schools says yes, which one would we send our child to? Simple as that. If all 6 schools said yes, which one would we send our child to? And whichever one that is, that's your number 1. That is the one you put highest on your common application form. Now, lots of people want to bring in lots of other criteria and confuse themselves, but actually all other criteria are irrelevant when it comes to deciding the order of preference. The only criteria is if they all said yes, which one would we choose? That's your favorite. That goes number 1. Then you're left with 5. So you've eliminated that. You've decided your highest priority school. Now you're left with 5. So you've eliminated the first one. You've decided that. Now you sit down with these 5 and you say, if all of these 5 schools said yes, which one would we send our child to? And you just think, whatever criteria you have, whatever makes you this your favorite school, whichever one you would send your child to out of those remaining 5 schools, if they all said yes, that then is your second highest preference. Then you're left with 4 schools and you repeat the same process. And that's how you decide the order. So in principle, it's very simple. And please don't try to bring other criteria into it because you'll be getting it wrong if you do. There are no other criteria. These are the criteria. What is your favorite school? Which one would you go to if they all said yes? Which is the second one, if you'd go to if they all said yes, and so on. Okay, so that's it. Preference, it's got nothing to do with pass marks. Your preference is your preference. Whatever criteria, whatever reason you like the school, whether it's because it's local or because you just like their uniform or because it's convenient with your work or whatever it is, your preference is your preference. It's got nothing to do with scores. Okay, so these are the choices that you've got to make. That's the summary of it. Now, I will mention this, that as of next week, I'll be doing individual consultations with anybody on that the course who would like it. This is specifically to do with the CAF and the CAF choices. So you should have a short list or potential short list, and you should have the results, because until you have the results and you've got your short list, there's not much I can do for you. And if you want me to read admissions policies in order to give you and tell you, do you fulfill a school's criteria or not, I would gladly help you with that. Okay, so it's best if you have all the results and you have a sort of short list. And even if you haven't narrowed it down to 6, maybe you've got 10 that you've narrowed it down to and you need a little help to finalize it to the last 6, I would be glad to do whatever I can to help. So that's from next week. And as I mentioned, I think I did mention that the SLOU results are due out, I believe, on Monday. And I think TIFIN stage 1s are out today. If not today, then tomorrow. So individual consultations over Zoom. If you want to do that, you can book a slot from next week or the week after. In any case, I will make sure that if you seek help and input from me, that I do provide you some help and input before the CAF deadline. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention. If you need to leave, then by all means. But if you wish to stay and either ask a question or listen to other people's questions and the answers, are very welcome to stay, of course. And we've got till about 8:30, which gives us a good half an hour if you want to. So I'm going to stop my share now. And If you do speak, if you ask question, you just need to raise your Zoom hand, and then I will enable you to speak. Your voice, of course, will be recorded, and that will be part of what is available. Okay, so if you want to discuss details about my child got this many and this many, and I'm thinking of putting this school and that school, that's too detailed for this forum. That would be suitable for an individual Zoom consultation. Okay, so save it for there. Okay, there's a hand up. Mr. Wadwa, sir, if you would like to ask your question, open your mic and fire away.
Yeah, hello, Sir Taylor.
Hello.
I hope you're well. Somewhere in your presentation, you mentioned like if you do not get a grammar school, then only you can appeal. But when people were putting questions in the chat, then you said like you can appeal even if you get a place in the grammar school. So little bit I'm confused with the wordings. Can you please clarify that?
You can only appeal once your application to a school has been rejected. So the application's been rejected, then you're appealing against that decision not to offer a place. So you'd get an offer on the 1st of March, National Offers Day. And if that isn't your first choice school, so for example, if you are offered the second choice school on the 1st of March, it means that the first choice of school has rejected your application and you can appeal to that first choice school at that point. I'm not sure if I've really addressed your question. I might
No,
have.
you have done. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, I
Thanks
got a
for
little
asking.
bit confused with
Yeah,
the
no
wording.
problem.
That's fine. Yeah.
Thank you for asking. Okay. If there are any more questions, just please do feel free to raise your Zoom hand. In the meantime, I'm going to look at the chat just to see if there are any more. So there's quite a lot of comments. I'm just scrolling through them because I've addressed most of these questions. There's a question here. On which reason or for which reason would you appeal for a non-selective school? I think they are talking about details and criteria for appealing, and I just can't help you with that. You'd have to you obviously would find lots of useful advice on the internet, but if you're going to actually mount an appeal, don't do it half-heartedly. Don't just sort of, roll the dice and see what happens. If you're appealing, you need to be confident that you've got a strong case. Don't be confident of the outcome, but be confident of your reason and case for appealing and give it everything. And so if I were appealing, I would seek some professional advice about it. So if I'm going to do it, I want to do it well. What's the total score for the Slough Consortium? And should we need to put the school preference according to passing marks? Okay. No, the preference is purely according to your preference of school. You might have reasons why you prefer this school over that school, whatever that is. Scores, likelihood of getting a place, completely irrelevant to the order. The order is your true order of preference. Okay, so please don't complicate that. Question. If you are wanting to include Buckinghamshire, do you need to put the name of a particular school or do you just put the consortium, Buckinghamshire? The answer is you must name a particular school. So on your common application form, you've got space to name 6 schools. You can't name consortia. You have to name a particular school. So if you don't happen to live in Buckinghamshire, but you want to include a school from Buckinghamshire, most people live either in Slough or Cranford, Heston, Hounslow, Feltham side, so towards the west. Most people would put Burnham Grammar School because Burnham Grammar School is towards that side, it's the nearest school towards that side. It's not the only one you could put, but that's what most people put because it's going to be the most convenient for getting to. So you must name a school. You can't name a consortium in your common application form. It's the same with the Slough Consortium. There are 4 grammar schools in the Slough Consortium, but you need to name the individual schools that you want to, because every school, even within a consortium, will have their own criteria. And every school within a consortium will prepare its own rank list of children. So they're very much, when it comes to offering places, it's very much they're operating as individual schools. The number of offers so the question is, how many offers can one child receive? You can only receive 1 offer at a time. So on the 1st of March, you'll get 1 offer, and it will be from the school that's highest on your CAF and said yes. Okay, so a few lucky people will be offered a place at their first choice school on the 1st of March. And then they can forget the whole process because they've already got their favorite school. But most people will not be offered their first choice. They'll be offered a lower preference, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th. And then in a subsequent round, you might get an offer at a higher placed school. And then and you would accept, most likely you would accept. You would have accepted the first offer you got, but you can then accept a higher offer later on. And I don't know how many rounds there are, but the first one, 1st of March, and then another one sort of towards the end of March, and then another maybe late April, and then maybe another late June. So there might be 3 or 4 rounds of offers, and who knows, you might get a higher offer in subsequent rounds if you're very lucky. But you will only get 1 offer in March, and it will be from the school that was highest on your CAF and said yes. I'll repeat though, whichever offer you get, accept it. Because that doesn't mean you can't get a higher offer. In fact, it means that you may get a higher offer, but you need to accept whatever offer you're made in the first place. The question here is there any incidents that no school is offered? I think your local authority is legally bound to provide a school place because of compulsory schooling. So they have to offer a school place. But if you did not include a category 3 school, i.e. one that your child will almost certainly qualify for, i.e. your catchment non-selective school, if you didn't put one, it's possible that none of the 6 schools that you put on your CAF will offer a place. That's quite possible. But when all the rounds of offers are finished, then at the end, some schools will still have places, and your local authority will offer you a place at any school that is in the local authority and has places left. So it wouldn't happen that your child is not offered a place at all, but it is possible that your child is not offered a place at any of the schools on your CAF. So important, I think it's important that your child is offered a place at a school on your CAF for reasons I explained earlier in the webinar. Okay, I think I've been through all the questions in the chat, which were brilliant. Thank you very much for asking those. But if there is anything else, you can either raise your Zoom hand or ask in the chat. And remember, this is not the end of it. This is just an introduction to help you understand how this thing works. And I'm giving some advice so that you can do right by your child. Remember, your work is not finished. And I will give individual guidance about your specific circumstances, taking into account the shortlist, where you live, the scores that your child has got, all of that to help you to kind of optimize your CAF. And that will be from next week. So remember that. Yeah, I'll be happy to help anybody who wants a little bit of guidance on this. Even if you've been through this process before, because it's such an important thing, there's no harm in just getting, a second opinion or just somebody to look over it who's kind of detached from the situation. You know how it is. You get really close to it and your partner gets really close to it and you're not sure if what you're doing actually makes sense. And I'd be that kind of detached onlooker who can say, yes, this makes sense, or no, I would consider this, or have you thought about this? Okay, I'll be very glad to do that so that you can get this right. All right. Well, I think that there are no more questions that you wish to ask now. Please do send the results in the way of us, the official notifications, because regardless of, other things like result rewards and money back guarantees and all of that, we really do want to know how the kids have fared. Because, you've worked very hard and your child has worked hard, but we've also worked hard to try to do our best for your child. And we do like to know how things came out. Thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to seeing some of you again over the next couple of weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.